You won't believe how fast the tone has shifted inside the Golden State Warriors front office. Just a few weeks ago, all signs pointed to Jonathan Kaminga being on the move. Trade rumors were flying, insiders were speculating, and the fan base was bracing for a farewell. But now, a stunning report has thrown a wrench into all of that. And the craziest part? It's not just smoke. It's coming from deep inside the organization, with sources confirming the Warriors are no longer even entertaining trade talks for Kaminga, at least not for now. That's right. After all the noise, all the speculation, all the theories that Kaminga would be packaged off to Sacramento or Phoenix or whoever else, the Warriors are pulling the plug on trade talks. He's staying, at least to start the season. That's according to a bombshell from Tim Kawakami, who says that after checking in with a key team source, the answer was definitive. Kaminga will be on the roster opening night. Now, what does this mean? It means Golden State is holding its line. They're not desperate. They're not panicking. And most importantly, they're not going to settle. They know Kaminga's value is high, and they're betting that it could go even higher, which is why they're prepared to keep him around, even if it means dealing with some short-term awkwardness. Because let's be honest, this situation is far from clean. Here's where it gets tricky. Kaminga is technically a restricted free agent. The Warriors extended a qualifying offer, $7.9 million for 1 year. That means Kaminga has a decision to make. He can accept that deal and play this upcoming season on a 1-year contract, becoming an unrestricted free agent next summer. Or he can negotiate a longer-term deal now. But here's the catch. If he signs that 1-year deal, it limits the Warriors' ability to trade a midseason, because a smaller salary means a smaller return. And Golden State knows that if they're going to maximize this roster around Steph Curry's championship window, they need trade flexibility. That's why they've been pushing for a multi-year extension, not just to keep Kaminga, but to maintain leverage. From what we're hearing, the Warriors did put an offer on the table. 2 years, $45 million. But Kaminga's camp rejected it. Why? Reportedly, because the second year wasn't guaranteed. On top of that, Golden State wanted him to waive his no-trade clause in the first year, something that sent a clear message. They like him, sure, but they also want the option to move him if the right superstar becomes available. And let's not pretend like this is just theoretical. Names like Giannis Antetokounmpo keep popping up. Reports say he's once again questioning the Bucks' direction and whether they can contend. If Milwaukee flames out again next year, the pressure could hit a breaking point. And Golden State, with its mix of young assets and flexible contracts, is quietly positioning itself to make a move, if and when that door opens. So, yeah, keeping Kaminga on a team-friendly contract would be a massive asset if a blockbuster becomes possible. But here's the tension. Kaminga's agent, Aaron Turner, isn't exactly playing ball. In fact, this whole thing is starting to feel like a standoff. Turner reportedly offered a counterproposal, 3 years, $82 million, that would have allowed the Warriors to stay under the dreaded second apron and retain some mid-level flexibility. But Golden State said no, flat out rejected it. Why? Because it didn't include the kind of flexibility they wanted, and possibly because of Turner's track record. Now, for those who don't know, Turner's history with situations like this is shaky. He did the same thing with Victor Oladipo a few years back, convincing him to turn down a solid extension with the Pacers and bet on himself. What happened? Oladipo took the qualifying offer, got traded to Houston, got injured, and his market tanked. He eventually fired Turner. So yeah, if you're a Warriors fan right now, you might be praying that Kaminga doesn't follow the same script. And that brings us to the key date in all of this, October 1st. That's the deadline for Kaminga to decide whether he's taking the qualifying offer or not. So, technically, we've got nearly 2 more months of this limbo. 2 more months of uncertainty, negotiation, posturing, and rumor surfing. Welcome to the NBA offseason, folks. Now, let's talk about Sacramento, because out of all the teams reportedly interested, the Kings were the most aggressive. They even got as far as laying out a sign-and-trade framework, a 3-year, $63 million offer to Kaminga with Malik Monk and a protected first-round pick heading back to Golden State. Sounds fair on paper, right? But the deal hit a wall. Why? Because the Warriors demanded that the pick be unprotected. Sacramento didn't budge, and the talk stalled. Now, let's be honest. Malik Monk is a solid player. He averaged 17 points per game, played 31 minutes a night, and he's electric offensively. But here's the thing. He's another small guard. The Warriors already have enough undersized perimeter guys. What they need is size, defense, and versatility. So Monk, despite his talent, isn't a perfect fit. Add to that his 4-year, $77 million deal, and you can understand why Golden State wasn't exactly drooling over that package. Plus, there's the question of what the Kings didn't offer. No Keegan Murray, no Keon Ellis, two of their most valuable young assets, and reportedly not even mentioned in trade talks. That alone tells you everything about how lightly Sacramento was taking this negotiation and how firmly the Warriors are drawing the line. Golden State made it clear they're not including Moses Moody. They're not taking back bad contracts. And unless the deal makes them significantly better or sets them up for a major move down the line, they're not even picking up the phone. Phoenix also tried to get in on the action, reportedly offering Royce O'Neal, Nick Richards, and a few second-rounders. But let's be honest, that's a garbage offer. The Warriors didn't even flinch. So what does all of this tell us? It tells us that Golden State is in full control here. They're not desperate to move Kaminga. They're not going to give him away. And they're certainly not going to get fleeced just to clear up a contract dispute. They're holding their cards close, protecting the $22 million salary slot, and keeping their powder dry in case a bigger opportunity arises. There's also a strong sense around the league that this sudden shift, the leak that Kaminga is off the market, might just be a ploy, a message to the Kings, a way of saying, if you want him, you better come correct. Because let's be real, if Sacramento came back tomorrow offering Murray or another major piece, you better believe Golden State would at least take that call. But until then, they're staying patient. And honestly, that might be the smartest move they made all summer. Because here's the reality. Kaminga is still just 21 years old. He's athletic, he's explosive, he's shown flashes of brilliance. And in a league where young talent and upside rule everything, it makes way more sense to wait it out than to sell low. But that doesn't mean there isn't risk. If Kaminga does take that qualifying offer and plays out the season on a 1-year deal, the Warriors lose a ton of leverage. His salary becomes harder to match in trades. His value becomes tied to short-term performance. And worst-case scenario, he walks next summer for nothing. That would be a brutal outcome, especially for a team still trying to squeeze one more title out of the Steph era. So yeah, this is a high-stakes poker game now. The Warriors are betting that time is on their side. That Kaminga won't risk his future earnings just to prove a point. That eventually, he'll accept a reasonable deal. Or that someone else will up their offer enough to make it worth the risk. Meanwhile, the fans are just stuck in the middle, waiting for some kind of resolution that doesn't feel like a disaster. Some are frustrated that it's dragged on this long. Others are happy the Warriors didn't panic and take the first decent offer that came through the door. So now that the dust has settled for the moment, and Kaminga is officially off the trade block, we've got to talk about what this really means for the Warriors on the court. Because as much as this has been a front office chess match full of contract clauses, luxury tax implications, and trade protections, at the end of the day, this is about basketball. This is about winning games. And if Golden State is serious about making another run in Steph Curry's window, then Jonathan Kaminga is going to have to be more than just a trade asset. He's going to have to be a difference maker. Let's be honest. Last season was frustrating for a lot of reasons, and one of them was the inconsistent usage of Kaminga. When he was on, he was on. He had stretches where he looked like the most athletic, dynamic forward on the roster, someone who could slash, rebound, defend, and create mismatches every time down the floor. But there were also long stretches where he seemed lost in the shuffle, pulled early, stuck on the bench, or even left out of the rotation entirely. The now infamous Kerr's doghouse became a running joke among fans, but it reflected a real disconnect between the coaching staff's trust in him and his actual production. And look, some of that is on Kaminga. He's still raw in a lot of ways. The decision-making has to improve. He's got to sharpen his defensive instincts, especially off the ball. And the three-point shot, while not broken, still isn't something defenses respect enough to guard him out there consistently. But at the same time, How does a guy get better at those things without consistent minutes? Without being given the leash to play through mistakes and grow in real time? That's where this upcoming season gets really interesting. Because if the Warriors are going to keep him, then they've got to use him. You can't hold on to this asset, walk away from trade talks, and then stick him back in the same 20-minute per game, low-usage role. That's a waste for both sides. If Kaminga's going to be on the roster, he needs to be in the game plan. He needs defined minutes, a real role, and trust from the coaching staff. Otherwise, this whole "we're not trading him" stance is going to feel like empty posturing, and it'll blow up fast. Now, the question becomes, how does he fit? What does his role look like in this version of the Warriors, especially if they're trying to retool and make one last deep run? Because remember, Draymond Green is still here. Andrew Wiggins is still here. Tracy Jackson-Davis is emerging. And even though Klay Thompson is gone, Golden State still has to balance a rotation that includes Moses Moody, Brandon Podziemski, Gary Payton II, and Chris Paul if he stays. So there's no shortage of bodies. The challenge is creating a system where Kaminga's strengths are actually utilized. The most obvious starting point is pace. When the Warriors play fast, when they get out in transition and push the tempo, that's when Kaminga thrives. He's one of the best open-court finishers in the league. His straight-line speed, vertical explosiveness, and body control make him a nightmare for defenses trying to get back. But to unlock that, Golden State needs to run. They need to rebound and go, which means they need to give Kaminga license to crash the boards, grab and go, and initiate fast breaks. That's a big adjustment for a team that's traditionally relied on Steph and Draymond to initiate everything. But it's a necessary one if they want to maximize what Kaminga can bring. In the half court, it gets trickier. Kaminga is not a floor spacer, at least not yet, so putting him in the corner like a 3 and D-wing isn't going to cut it. He needs movement, he needs slashing lanes, and he needs to be used as a screener and cutter. Think short rolls, backdoor cuts, dunker spot actions, plays that get him near the rim and let him use his athleticism to finish through contact. That also means giving him more reps in the second unit, where he could be a focal point instead of just a complementary piece. Maybe even some small ball 5 minutes when Draymond sits, depending on matchups. Defensively, Kaminga is already capable of being elite. He's strong, quick laterally, and he's one of the few players on the roster who can credibly switch across 4 or even 5 positions. But again, the issue is consistency. He'll have nights where he locks up a star wing, then games where he loses focus or gets caught ball watching. That's part of being young. But the more minutes he plays, the more those habits can be broken. And the more the Warriors lean into his physical tools, the better their chances of surviving some of the matchups that killed them last season, especially against longer, more athletic teams. But here's the other layer to all this. How much of this is even about Kaminga long-term? Because yeah, they're keeping him for now. But everything about the way Golden State has handled this, the offers, the qualifying deal, the no-trade clause requests, suggests they're also thinking about the next move, the bigger move. And that means one thing. They still want to be in position to land a star if and when the opportunity presents itself. Look, we all know how long this rumor has been hanging around. Every time there's a whiff of dissatisfaction in Milwaukee, the Warriors get mentioned. And for good reason. Steph wants to win. He's not getting younger. Joe Lacob is still one of the most aggressive owners in basketball. And if Giannis ever became available, really available, Golden State would move heaven and earth to put together a package. That's why they're guarding that salary slot. That's why they want Kaminga on a multi-year deal with team control. Because it's not just about keeping him, it's about leveraging him when the time is right.